Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some of the most profound existential themes ever put into words. We're looking at Hermann Hesse's masterpiece, Siddhartha. It's his absolutely incredible bridge between Eastern philosophy and Western thought. And while the tone of the narrative is super calm, almost meditative, it actually forces us to ask some seriously radical questions about how we actually find meaning in our everyday lives. Take a look at this quote, Var är en lampa, which translates to be your own lamp. This isn't just some pretty phrase, it's literally the foundation for everything we're exploring today. It's a call for total existential independence. What it means is that your journey to true insight, to enlightenment, relies entirely on your own inner light. There's no external guide, no ultimate guru, and definitely no universal rulebook that's going to flip that switch for you. You are the source.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the river and constant change. The philosophy of the river.
To really understand the river, we first have to wrap our heads around this crucial concept called anicca. Basically, anicca represents impermanence. It's the idea that constant change is baked into literally everything that exists. Think about a standard candle flame. When you look at it, the flame seems exactly the same from one second to the next, right? It gives off the same warm glow, it holds the exact same shape, but in reality, it's constantly burning new gas, constantly melting new wax. The flame is in this state of continuous, uninterrupted change, yet it creates this perfect illusion of being permanent. According to this philosophy, that is exactly how our entire existence works. So, let's take that candle flame principle and apply it directly to water. The river is basically the ultimate physical embodiment of anicca, and it does this in three really specific ways. First, it's in constant movement. New water is always rushing by. Second, despite that constant flux, it remains a single, unified entity. We can point at it and say, hey, there's the river. And third, it acts as a literal bridge between opposing forces, connecting the two shores. This is exactly where our main character reaches his ultimate breakthrough. He doesn't do it by listening to human guides or spiritual authorities. He does it by just sitting quietly and listening to the water. The river becomes the ultimate master because it physically shows him how life works, rather than just explaining it. Moving right along to Section 2, Experience over Organized Religion, Rejecting the Traditional Path. This really gets to the heart of the core conflict. On the left side here, we have organized tradition. This is the path built entirely on rules, dogmas, and basically following in someone else's footsteps. It's all about accepting what somebody else has already figured out. But contrast that with the right side, personal experience. Here, the entire focus shifts to internal realization and, of course, the river. See, if you just blindly follow a rulebook, the result is usually just intellectual superficiality. That deeply transformative realization about life simply cannot be handed to you in a neat little package from someone else. It's something you literally have to live and experience directly for yourself. Which brings us to a really mind-blowing realization. True wisdom cannot be communicated through words. Why? Well, it's a matter of cause and effect. Words are static. They freeze a single moment in time. But reality, just like the river, just like anicca, is always moving, always flowing. Words can only ever capture tiny fragments of the truth. Because of that, finding that ultimate insight requires you to eventually just stop talking, stop overanalyzing everything with language, and simply observe the world exactly as it is. That takes us to Section 3, the individual and the human collective, connecting the inner and outer worlds. Now, you might be wondering, doesn't this whole be your own lamp philosophy just lead to total isolation? Do we lose our connection to other people if we're just chasing this hyper-individualistic truth? Well, there's definitely a risk of that at first, since the search usually starts in total solitude when you break away from the crowd. But here is where we see this amazing twist. When you truly grasp anicca, when you look deeply enough at the river, you realize you're actually just a single drop in the exact same massive current as everybody else. That initial fear of isolation totally vanishes. It gets replaced by this profound realization that you are fundamentally united with all humanity. You start to see that the suffering and joy of others are essentially the exact same suffering and joy inside yourself, and that creates an incredibly deep, genuine empathy.
Next up, Section 4, Modern Challenges, Applying Ancient Wisdom Today. Look at this question here. Can we find truth alone in a connected world? It's incredibly relevant for us today. I mean, how are we supposed to be our own lamp when literally thousands of glowing screens are constantly fighting for our attention? We live in this hyper-connected era where we're just bombarded with information, with everybody's opinions, and this constant deafening noise. It makes it exponentially harder to actually tune out the world and hear your own inner voice.
The real struggle today is this massive tug of war between seeking external validation and trusting your own internal validity. We live in a society that constantly rewards rapid-fire reactions and outward approval, likes, views, shares. In that context, Hess's vision of quiet introspection is almost a provocation. Modern norms are always pushing us to look outward to figure out who we are, but this ancient philosophy demands that we stop, pause, and look inward. It definitely makes living by these principles a lot harder to practice today, but honestly, it also makes them more desperately needed than ever before.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Inner Insight, Outer Morality, the existential synthesis.
So how do we actually translate this quiet, highly internal journey into practical, everyday actions toward other people? It really boils down to two incredible conclusions. First, having an inner acceptance of change, like truly embracing the nature of the river, completely removes our existential fear. We just stop frantically clinging to things that are inevitably going to change anyway. And second, the absence of that fear naturally generates a really compassionate morality. Think about it. When you aren't driven by this desperate need to protect your ego at all costs, treating others well just comes naturally. Acting ethically isn't some forced rule imposed from the outside anymore. It becomes a spontaneous, natural expression of who you are when you're in perfect harmony with the whole world.
Which leads us to one final, lingering thought to take with you. If you are part of the river, how do you shape the shores around you? I think that perfectly captures the whole essence of what we've been talking about today. Your inner peace isn't just for your own benefit. The movement you create within yourself literally shapes the stones and the shores in the outside world. How your inner insight manifests has a huge, tangible impact on the lives you touch. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, keep observing the water, and whatever you do, don't forget to be your own lamp.